Hi guys, welcome back to Gold Nugget Gang Podcast. We are at episode 2. We are in Bartertrade Singapore again, and we have Santosh with us from Bartertrade Singapore. Today we are talking about grading in general.
Yeah.
Right? Santosh is representing Rebirth Vault.
Yeah.
And Rebirth Vault does grading.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the grading scene? Who are the companies that are doing grading, and who are the more reliable ones that people typically should know about if they want to go into grading their cards?
Okay, so there is a few companies out there that does grading, like get them slapped up and all those, right? So we have some examples here, right? So like there is PSA, there is BGS, there's CGC. So that's an example of a PSA.
PSA,
right?
Yeah. We can show later.
Later we'll show.
Yeah, BGS.
So the newer ones are like your ACE and your TAG, right? So those are the newer ones. So you were saying reliability, right? So every company got their pros and cons, right? Recently, CGS got its own hoo-ha, and BGS has its own hoo-ha. Not saying PSA is all good, but PSA also got its own issues. So, but what we have to do as collectors, or what we have to do as people who are in the scene, we have to basically read the market. So, like in the market now, what has the upper hand, or which company has the higher number count? Like for example, PSA, whether is it PSA, whether is it BGS, whether is it CGC, or the tag or ACE, whichever it may be, right? So it's like what I was saying, we got to know which has the market share, right? So technically people will just move towards either to PSA or BGS, but then recently with a lot of social media, a lot of people, tech has been ramping up on its there's pros and cons on that also. If you have seen a lot of social media on it.
So currently, maybe I just jump in. Which is the most popular grading company for cards now? Market, would you say that PSA has majority share?
I personally would say PSA has majority share.
Okay. So PSA has majority share. And then who's next? Who's after PSA?
I think CGC and BGS is quite close.
It's quite close because there is So CGC and BGS, they have the beyond 10. Like PSA is absolute, like if it's 10, it's 10, right? But if it's for BGS and CGC, there is like pristine 10, black label 10, those kind of things, which there's examples here, right? So maybe it's because of those, that's why the market share for like majority of cards versus like PSA versus the other two company, right? It's a bit lesser, but the premiums that you can get from a pristine 10 or a black label 10 is much higher.
That is very true.
Comparing to a PSA 10. So, but it's not for all the case. There are some PSA 10s are slightly higher than a pristine 10 CGC, but not a black label BGS, because black label is like the upper echelon kind of thing.
So now we're talking about the grading levels, right? Javier, can you just share with us a little bit on like what are these levels? What do the grades sort of represent? If somebody goes to grade a card, right? What are the typical things that they are grading for? What are these grading companies typically measuring?
Yeah, so for context, right, the most popular one is, for my knowledge, is PSA. So PSA, the highest grade you can ever attain is the Gem Min 10. Then subsequently is a Min 9. Then there's a 8.5. Then there's a 8, which is near mint. So anything below 9, they start to have 0.5 for PSA. So essentially, the highest grade can ever attain for PSA is a gem mint 10. So there's only one term. Yeah, right. So then,
sorry, just to interject a bit.
Yep.
PSA stopped giving 0.5s already.
Oh, really?
If you realize.
Okay.
They have done with all the 0.5. So I mean, just to correct you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So they have done get rid of the 0.5s because they want to give absolute numbers.
Okay.
Because so last time they used to give 0.5 for if you remember last time, when you have miscuts.
Yeah, they'll give some
then they'll
0.5.
put OC or 0.5s or whatever, But now they
No more,
done,
yeah? I see. Okay.
So maybe
that's
our
something new.
0.5s will go up in value.
Could be.
Because it's rare.
Yeah, it's very right. So anyway, so PSA now, like what Santosh has absolute numbers only. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the highest is gem in 10. But for CGC, which I like the most because of the pristine 10 is gold color, right? But they don't really give. They still give subgrades, but they have changed their label from a blue to a golden black color.
Yeah.
So but if you were to look at the gem mint 10 for CGC, there's something always higher than that right now, which is the pristine 10. So the value has a premium to it, like what Santosh also said. So some people may take a liking to it. Specifically for me, I like the pristine 10. So if you compare between a gem mint 10 from PSA to CGC pristine 10, there is a premium for the pristine 10.
A bit maybe about 10%.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's still comparable.
It's still comparable.
Yeah.
So the other last one that's more popular is BGS. BGS has its good and bad. So BGS comes with subgrades. It gives you very good details on how far the card is being graded on terms of different criteria to get to that score. But BGS, usually by standard, the best ones are Gold 10, and then the higher tier will be the Black Label 10 that everybody wants. The population is so low, it's insane. The Black Label is just so beautiful and it's metallic, right? It's a collector's item essentially. So these are the top 3 companies in my breakdown of all the grading system. BGS has also subgrades, which then all 4 will give you a different criteria. So do check out their website for how they decide on 0.5s. So if as a collector, if you're planning to collect, then it doesn't matter which one you go for. Just pick one company you like and go, right? But if you're going to more like for collecting some for reselling or to sell next time from your old collection that's being sent for grading, I think most commonly people will choose PSA due to the absolute grade and the bigger market share, right? And then also there's more data on it, then you can command a better price for that. The rest is just more hand waving, using PSA as a main reference to guide your pricing. Yeah, so maybe just add one last one. The tech one, the recently has bring in a new concept of AI to grade the thing. So there's a whole new different level already. The max grade is 1000, and then you can go down by scoring, right? So but that one I'm not too familiar. Maybe later on y'all can add on if y'all have some idea. But generally tech is picking up like crazy. I got a few myself. It looks not too bad, highly presentable, and then they do a lot of marketing and presentation for you. Yeah.
So just to go back to the grading point system, so for those who don't really know, for example, BGS on their slabs, when you get them with their subgrades, there's centering, there's edges, there's corners and surfaces. Santosh, is that similar? Are those the 4 markers or variables that they are looking out for PSA and the other company as well? So same. So yeah, most
of them is about the same.
Yeah. One thing to differentiate also is that I think that's come up in the slabs when people choose different ones is that the way BGS calculates the absolute grade is slightly different than PSA. So what BGS does is that they will, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but they essentially average out all your 4.
There is a set of criteria that they put, right? So like if you have 3 10s and then 1 9.5, you get a gold 10.
Yes.
But if you have 2 9.5s, you're automatically down to a gold 9.5.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but let's say you got one of them that is like maybe a 7 or something.
Yeah,
but the rest is very nice. The rest is 10, but the one is 7.
Yeah.
They sort of average out.
They have their own table list that they go. I'm suspecting it's a 8.5 from there.
But if it's a PSA, what they do is that they essentially take the lowest score, right? Do they do that, or it's not public knowledge lah, but it is lah, right?
I mean, it's like what you say. It's not public knowledge, but I mean, I think is they will take the lowest lah. Right, because
I think they have their own set of personal criteria which nobody knows.
Has its own criteria on like they will checklist. Cross, that kind of thing.
The reason why I asked that is because I've had some cards where they were PSA 5 or 6s. Then when they got crossed over to to BGS, they became 7s. Maybe a 7.5 or
I think
8.
those situations are usually more on surface, crease, bands, dents, right? And then PSA is all about superficial. That means the first look when the grader look at it, if it's very clean, you're gonna get a starting higher bench score. But the moment you see a dent, a crease mark, you're pretty much screwed already. You're gonna go down to a 6, 5 or 4 already, depending on what other additional things. So if you cross over to a BGS, to a CGC, where surface is weighed equally to all the other subgrades, right? There's a chance that your grades will go up.
Yeah. So I guess, in a quick one, actually what we covered quite a lot, which is to say the grading system itself, also the different companies, how they sort of grade, right? Then we touched a bit about value. But in your experience, Santosh, you also sell quite a lot on eBay and things like that.
Yeah.
Like if a person gets a card, right? What should they consider or think about in terms of which company they should get? Of course, depending on the condition as well, right? We should get into. But like if they had a card that was really good condition versus they had a card that's not so good condition, what should be their consideration in terms of which company to go for? If we're talking about really like the value of the card. Right? Do you have any sort of thoughts on that?
I personally, for me, it's really preference, like what was mentioned earlier, right? It's really preference, like whether ultimately you want to know where the market share is, right? And let's say if you're talking about a specific card, like like for example, Post Malone's current 1-on-1 Lord of Rings card, right? Right. So it's a PSA card. It's a PSA 10, right? So it's a 1 out of 1 card, right? And why people send it to PSA instead of like BGS? So maybe the card isn't as a black label worthy, right? But ultimately, I think it's still preference, right? On which company you want to send it to, right? So that's my take. I think it's a very personal and to me personally, I don't think I will choose one over another. It really depends. Like if a customer comes to me and asks, or a person comes to me and asks, I would say it's up to you lah. Right? So it's really whether if the card is worthy of a black label, sure, why not, right? But if the card is just worthy of a PSA 10, then PSA 10.
So I guess if just back on that, like the tiering does play a system. The tiering does play a part lah, because if it can get a black label, then people would typically try for that black label. But if it's a very low risk or the very high chance that you won't get a black label, then maybe people will say that maybe just try for a PSA 10 lah. Because I just put a scenario to you, right? If I had a card and if you were to try and sell the card, let's say you were trying to sell a PSA, let's say a PSA 9 for a base set Zard versus let's say a BGS 9, right? Which maybe have one subgrade of 8.5 or something like that. Would you say that the market is preferable to one or the other, or you think that that doesn't really matter?
I think it's still back to the data.
Yeah, it goes down. I find that there's the BGS 9, because of the subgrade, right? It gives the buyer a lot of negotiating power. What if there's like a 8.5, like you said, right? Or 8, right? Will you take that BGS 9? Yeah. So some people will take it as like I'm probably buying this to cross over to a PSA. But if I see that subgrade corner as an 8, it becomes a risk taking. You might think that maybe it's not worthy of a 9. It could be an 8 at the end of the day. Yeah. So then this subgrade actually takes you down quite a lot in the value, and people will start bargaining for a cheaper price, right?
Yeah.
But let me just add on a little bit on the difference between like choosing the PSA and like another BGS, right? I think the best example I've seen so far was between two different TCG type of collection. One is Pokemon versus One Piece. Like Pokemon by default, everybody sends PSA.
Yeah.
You don't need to think twice. Unless you're so confident that it's going to hit a BGS Gold 10, right? Then you take a gamble.
Yeah.
But One Piece has, by default, I think when it started out, everybody went straight for BGS. They didn't even think, because the black label rate was hitting so nicely. And then Gold 10 was also hitting so nicely that people are willing to take the gamble and wait the time. And then, but PSA has starting to trend up for One Piece recently. I think it's just basically simply that not everything can hit black label anymore. People are trying to move their cards. They have access back to PSA to see whether they can sell it off, get some cash back and then redo another set. Yeah, but Pokemon, I've hardly see people trying to go for BGS unless they are so confident to get the subgrades that are that great.
Yeah, I mean, as a vendor, I do find that I'm more confident taking in Pokemon when it's PSA or most cards I'm more confident in PSA like people come to the store or the booth to try and buy, then when they see PSA they're more comfortable even if it's lower grade. I find that 8s or 7s or what actually still moves, so it's a popular character, but once it's a BGS or even maybe a CGC, unless the card is maybe a rarer, I find most people will pick the PSA over the other ones.
It's
unless
the
it's
data.
the back label.
It's the data.
It's the data. It's really the data, because like the same scenario will happen, and in whatever events that we are going to go, right, it will happen because people are very familiar with PSA. Like, even your, Tom, Dick and Harry, anyone will know what's a PSA.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's in the social media. Like, then the second one will be tech.
Yeah.
Because it's in the social media. You will rarely see a CGC and a BGS in social media. Like, no one is out there, I just got back my, it's BGS, very little. Right? But majority is just PSA and recently which is tech. So that's why people will like, I'm very familiar with this. And because you are going to spend X amount of money or even a trade, people want familiarity instead of like, this is a bit new, I'm going to take a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, even for me, when I'm in the shop or even when I'm boothing, right, I prefer not to accept BGS or CGC because it's a risk that we are taking. Right?
Yeah.
And sure, people can say, this is a very big, to me, I feel it's a very misleading kind of thing. PSA 10 is equal to BGS 9.5. BGS, which is totally is the wrong thing.
It's the wrong thing.
We shouldn't compare like that. Right? I to me personally, I dislike this kind of comments.
Even a Gold 10 doesn't necessarily mean a PSA 10.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people have this misconception saying that it's a 10 one.
That's true.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty sure for all three of us, we would accept a PSA over the others lah. But it really depends on situation.
Correct.
Depends on situation.
Like for me, I the last trade show, somebody came to me with a pristine 10 Clefairy. That's the promo 2017 with the Lily. And I look at it, I fell in love, man. It was so nice. But the price was he asked for pristine 10 premium, which I couldn't. I was trying to take it down a little bit to the PSA 10, right? But if you ask me, pristine 10 is my to-go for a collector item. But for PSA, if I want to liquidate any day, PSA 10 is always the clear-cut choice. I have not seen anything on social media so far, on my own platform at least, that somebody took a CGC pristine 10 and tried to trade with somebody else for a PSA 10. That I have not seen before. Yeah, but if you do it to me, I'll say okay, no problem.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we covered actually quite a lot in terms of the value, but I think just for the viewers out there, I think the market is quite clear that the black labels are the most expensive. Like let's say something is black label, it would typically go for even a very simple AR, like an AR or an IR card, which is maybe a $3 or $4 card, right? A black label could be 4 or 5 times the PSA 10 price. So maybe a PSA 10 will be a $40, but the black label may be $200. People
I think minimum is a 3 times.
People are willing to pay for that.
Yeah.
Then we've seen, I think, let's say the $40 card on a PSA 10. If it's a pristine 10 with the gold label by CGC, that will typically be about 10% more. So maybe about $50, or if it's about that, you can upsell a little bit more.
Yeah, that's
then
for sure.
of course it goes down to the rest. Like let's say if it's a BGS gold label 10s, then maybe it'll be about the same as the PSA 10. But we do see that most of the cards don't go to BGS. Most common cards don't go to BGS.
Yeah, most common cards.
Don't go to BGS. The ones that go to BGS are typically the higher end ones.
Yeah.
People are trying to get the black label. They didn't get it. So they're left with a 9.5 or something like that. Actually, I actually really don't see very low grades for BGS, unless maybe a vintage base sets out, or somebody may went to try a BGS, but most of the time those very, very rare to come by.
I think it takes a lot of knowledge on how to assess the card to decide whether you want a PSA or BGS.
Or the BGS,
Right. So to be, like one of the back to the example where if you have a gold 10, why is it not equivalent to genuine 10? I guess if you see a corner says 9.5, right? I think it's up to the buyers or the collector's due diligence to actually look through that card and in very thoroughly to see where that 9.5 come from. Yeah, because 9.5 from BGS point of view, it could be not even visible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that 9.5 is just not real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that BGS 10 is worthy for you to buy and try to flip, or cross over, right? But it goes down to your own personal ability to observe the card. So it's good to check through this kind of card thoroughly, especially for BGS. Gives away a lot of data. Transparency is there.
Yeah.
CGC used to do the subgrades.
Yes, they used to do. It's gone already.
Yeah, it's not like what. Yeah, correct. So like, I mean, like what you say, the hierarchy, right? Is always like collectors will want to, or collectors or even people who submit, right? They want a card. Let's say for BGS, right? Is always like black label. Like that's what they expect, lah, right? So like the hierarchy is there, lah. Black label from BGS. Then is pristine black, pristine 10. Sorry, pristine 10 from CGC.
10,
Then comes your PSA 10. I think that is the hierarchy, lah.
Yeah. Then maybe lower than that is maybe a BGS 10, lah.
Yeah, like,
10,
because like the comparison with a PSA 10 and a BGS 10, there's no much data compared to, like, okay, so for example, you send a card, is there a lot of BGS 10s on it, or would there will be a lot of PSA 10s on it?
Yeah.
So it still boils down to the data.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it goes down to data.
Data determines the value, the how much in the market. So how much in the market determines the absolute dollar on it, right? Because it's supply and demand, right? So if you have too much of 10s on a particular card, then it really demand is there and the supply is there. Then it really depends on the market.
Yeah.
Right. But some cards, like, are very difficult to get on a very good condition, like a PSA 10. So then there comes your PSA 9, whether is it of market value or is it because of demand or whatever. Same goes for BGS. But it's just BGS is just people are just looking out for the black label.
Yeah. So the value one, just want to touch on the value part, because like I collect Masaki Ingas, right? So I don't have a PSA 10. I don't know whether there is a BGS 10 out there. Like, I think there isn't. I think there's 9.5s or 9s, but I don't. From what I recall, when I checked the last time, I don't remember there's a BGS 10. But because the PSA 10 is so expensive, right? Like let's say 15,000-20,000 Sing dollars. So I never went around to buy that. But so I was just more than happy to sort of hold the 9, and that's because of the pop report. So to those who don't know, pop report is basically the population of that particular card in that particular grade, and also your population also doesn't. We'll talk about that later, but the population also really determines that price. For example, like the Masaki, there's only like less than 100 PSA 10s out there.
Yeah.
So I think it's hovering about 80 right now. So that's why it's very hard to get. Like I've got 3 9s, and they are 1/5 of the price of a 10 or even less, right? So most people will be saying that, okay, I can't afford the 10, but I'll just buy the 9, which I think for most collectors, I think is actually quite good, because I think you just have to think about it as within your price range. Okay, I can't afford a black label, I can't afford a BGS 10. Actually, a PSA 9 looks fine, because for PSA the number is actually quite small. So you display on your shelf, actually you won't be able to tell. So you got cards there, nice, it looks good. So actually as a collector, sometimes you may, if you really love the card and you can't afford the 10, actually it's fine to own the 9. And if you turn just purely on value, right? Like when I first bought my first Masaki 9, I bought it at about 1.8 thousand Sing dollars. That was maybe 2-3 years ago. But in the span of that 2-3 years ago to now, the 1.8 1.8 Sing has now gone to 4K Sing. Yeah, that's because the demand for that 10 is impossible. So people say, let me just buy the 9, and the demand for the 9 also increase. So that's, I think, if people are thinking from a collection perspective, just buy what you can afford, and then if it may still hold its value and it will go up also. So like I buy I have PSA 5s, I have PSA 2s, I have PSA 3s. The PSA 5s also, when I first bought it, I think it's $300 or $400, but now it's $1,000, just for PSA 5. So it's like it's okay. Have a lower grade, just hold it and then appreciate it. If you ever need yourself for whatever reason, the value I think still will go up, because the 10 is just too expensive. Everyone will want to get.
I think the vintage cards are following a set of bell curve that you will see the trend, right? Generally, the older cards will have very low pop of 10s. And then 9s will be the majority, 8s will be the majority, and 7 probably will start to dip already. So the best you can ever have, and within your pocket friendly kind of thing, 8 and 9s are within the range.
Yeah, for vintage.
Yeah, vintage, right? So that's the best you can ever have. You have a 10 is a godsend. You just lucky you got 110. And if you have 10, you can either hold it forever, or you can try to cash out and then buy more 9s to complete your set. That's usually the vintage kind of scenario that you will have.
Yeah. But okay, so like what you're talking about now is like the price and like a specific car, vintage and modern, right? So like if you're talking about vintage, right? So like your 8s and your 9s are like, if you can get them, because the price is ridiculous. Like if for you to get on a specific card on a 10, that's ridiculous, right? So if you're getting a 9 or a 5, 8, it's good. Right, it's good enough, because like what you say is the supply and demand kind of thing, right? So, but it's not the same for modern. If you realize, right?
Yeah.
So modern people just want 10s. No one wants 9s. Like it really baffles me, right? Like if you like the art, right? Does the grade matter?
If it's an art thing, I won't even bother grading it.
No, but there are some people who want to encapsulate it, like
fair enough.
Protect it,
Yes.
Right? But there are some submitters that I have met, right? It's a modern card. They like there's a story behind it. They like the card, but they only want 10s.
So if they would like that route, right? For example, over the last trade show, what was quite interesting was the English Sunbryon was sold.
Okay.
So vendors sold the English Sunbryon for $4,088.
Okay.
408. Which
408,
is actually okay, because the raw card maybe is about $2,000 worth.
Oh, it went up to 2,000. Okay.
Maybe I think it was about.
I don't know, man.
1,000.
I think it was about there lah.
Okay.
At one point maybe it was $2,000
Okay.
lah. But because now the more since Scarlet Violet's printing for English cards has taken a sort of a dive in terms of the quality, that's why a lot of 9s is very hard to get 10s actually, because a lot of them either OC, off center or things like that. So
I mean, it's an English printing.
it's an English printing issue lah. So it means that it's also very hard to sort of grade. So if you're talking about purely for value, right, like the reverse of that would be like he bought, for him is he loves that card, he buy it at a 10, he wants a 10, he hold it, and that's great. if somebody went another route to say, I'm going to open a booster pack, prismatic evolutions at $20 a pack, and I have to hunt for packs and then buy for packs. I may spend $2,000 or $3,000 hunting for it and may not even get it. You know, then I grade it may not come back at 10.
Yeah.
So you may spend more money hunting for it, and then you don't get that lah. So I think sometimes I think the end goal is also very important. It's like I had a card. I have some cards where I've kept in my collection. They are low grades because I hit those cards. So it came a 9. I think it's fine because those I hit. So I have that memory of me hitting that card in 9. Some that I don't have, then maybe it's just for the value of it. And maybe the reverse would be for you to just go and hunt for that card in a 10, but you have to pay the price that.
I mean, no, I understand that, right? Like if you are particularly hunting for a PSA 10, but that's the current situation. Like if you like the art, and the another one is another situation is where you have a 9 and a 10, right? Modern cards are 9 and a 10, same card.
Yeah.
But people who want to get the 10 instead of the 9, right? I understand about the QC and everything.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why it's a 9, there's a reason why it's a 10, right? But even though the person likes the art, right? They only want the 10s. They don't want the 9.
Then the question is, I mean, as humans we say what we say, but sometimes our intentions are different from what we say lah.
Yeah.
So I may say that I'm collecting a card, and a lot of people also come to me, hey, sell me at cheap because it's for my personal collection. It's for my personal collection. But
best story ever.
Yeah.
But that's sometimes I have to take with a pinch of salt lah. I mean, if you really like the card, then I recently met this collector. He collects. He just started his collection, but he only wants a specific set of cards, and he says that I'm happy to hold the 9s because I really like the card. Like he asked me to source for him Espion Neo Destiny first edition. A PSA 10 is maybe 4,000 USD, but the PSA 9 is actually about 700, 800 USD. So actually he was saying, I'm more than happy to buy the 9. So that the guy is he wants to he just loves the card and he wants to hold.
But that's vintage.
Yeah. But modern, I think also there are some people who really like the card, then they're just happy with it lah. But I think modern, because of the hype, a lot of people are always thinking like 10 is really the goal lah.
Yeah. So then comes to the point where they'll say, PSA 9 then is raw price .
Yeah, but there's actually a lot of different situation you'll see differently, right?
Yeah.
So like say modern cards 10 and 9. I know that everybody wants a 10 for modern.
Yeah.
But 9 usually is the case. It's more on the seller. I feel.
Okay.
Because the person who got a raw card, got it graded, he didn't come back at 10, now I have a 9. Then what I'm going to do with this card, right? I bought it maybe at almost near 10 kind of price.
Okay.
And then now I'm stuck with a 9.
Yeah.
I want to recover cash, right?
Yeah.
Then why would you buy a 9? And I said, to me, myself, if I were to see a modern card and I like the art, that let's say Team Rocket stuff, I am not going to pay a Jesse James from Hidden Fates 9 at a price where it's so close to a 10. I'd rather pay a little bit more to get a 10.
Yeah.
Because simply the pop is so high, right? And there must be a 10 sitting around.
Yeah.
So unless the 9 is at the price where I can accept, it's like maybe buying the raw or maybe below the raw, I might take a 9. So at least for that's my perspective. I buy my Jesse James at only 10s.
Yeah, but like to boil down to the point that I was trying to bring out, right? It's just people's the way people label 9s are, I think, wrong lah. Like 9 is like a virus kind of
trash.
thing. Yeah, it's like a trash. Like only 10s, I don't want 9s, that kind of thing. Like even when you are doing trades, right? Like I don't want 9s, just give me 10s. Like there's conversation like that. They feel 9s are all viruses.
Modern lah.
Yeah. No, I mean there are some vintage also. They prefer. I mean, I guess these people are, I don't want to use the word scalpers or whatever, but they are, in that kind of realm where either they don't know much about it, because they think 10 is the 10 out of 10 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Or They are just there to make a quick buck. I only want 10s.
Yeah.
Right? So it could be either one of those situations lah, right? But there are, the current, the whole situation now is like 9 is a virus, 10 is the goal.
Yeah. I guess this one comes to many philosophical questions lah. We cannot tackle this.
It's a very personal thing lah. But I just
we cannot tackle
it's just like
too many examples. Cannot share.
I'm pretty sure between three of us there is a lot of 9s that we want to offload during trade shows.
Yeah. Definitely some modern 9s that I want to offload.
Actually, okay lah. Eventually, like I bought people. Okay, so 9s actually. I find that there is a group of people that don't mind buying 9s because what they want to do is they will try to crack the 9 to go to a 10. Which is perfectly fine. They are willing to take that risk. They say, I don't buy a 10, I look for a 9. I think that the 9 is not bad. Maybe I just have to
do
clean the card a little bit better. Maybe flatten it a little bit or something like that to make sure that it looks good. And then I just shoot it off. May come back as a 10. I think that's fine. I think there are some people who try that as a what. So I think there's still market for 9. There's still people who say, I don't buy the 4K mode Sunbreon, I buy the 1.8K PSA 9 and then I just try and see. It may come back at 10. If not, then okay, I'll still stay at the 9 and then I'll just pay my grading fee.
But I mean, you guys know what I'm trying to say. You guys know what I'm trying to say, right? Because we have seen it, right? It's not like only me experiencing it.
I think to summarize there is the hype of the hobby. There is whether people are coming in just to make a quick buck, whether people are coming in to see this as a pure investment. I think there's a very big topic to the side of things. Like I don't think we can cover that now.
But the fair goes down is still all data, right? Moderns are still PSA 10. There's too many around. You buy, you sell, it's still a PSA 10. You hardly see a 9, 8 moving around.
And if you realize this just only happens for Pokemon. But let's say if you're talking about sports, it's a whole different game,
But because those are also the availability, right? Because some of the cards like 1 of 1.
Correct.
So there's like, for example, the you're saying the magic one ring. There was only one, right? PSA graded it a 9, right?
9.
It's a 9,
So there's no more, there's no.
Correct. So exactly. So if like even your numbered cards, like let's say sports cards that like some series there's 1 out of 2, 1 out of 5, blah blah blah, right? That kind of things, right? So even those, right? Yes, you are trying to hunt for 10, but we know how. I don't know about whether you guys have seen like how the sports cards and the condition of sports cards are not fantastic also.
Because they are sharp corners.
And some cards are thick cards, the fat cards. So technically, if you get a PSA 9 on those, it's very good already.
Yes.
Because the thick cards, the edges usually is perforated. When it come out from a pack, it's already like that.
Correct.
So those, if you get 9, sure, because so that's the difference, right? It's like if it's other than Pokemon, if I'm pretty sure Pokemon and One Piece, all the TCGs, they want 10s. Mostly.
I think in general, anything else other than sports cards, everything else needs a 10.
Correct.
I think one of the factors also I do think is because the number that's on the market. Like there's definitely more, like say like Moonbreons or Sunbreons in the market based on pop reports as compared to maybe the sports cards. And also I'm sure they print a lot more Pokemon cards every year than they do.
I think sports cards way more limited.
In the numbers
because it's numbered, right? It changes a lot of things. If Pokemon card was numbered, can you imagine what would happen, right?
Imagine the same situation now. With number Pokemon, like how One Piece has the number cards.
The special serialized
the Shanks and Luffy or something.
But I mean, there's another. Hopefully, we're gonna get there. So I mean, okay, moving from, I think we spoke quite a lot about value of the card, the demand, the hype. Some of the global events that have impacted TCG over the years over this year recently has been, tariffs, trading, and one thing that started recently with most grading companies, for us in Singapore, is that there has been an uptake on Japanese PSA submissions to PSA in Japan. There's a PSA in China also, right?
Yes. But it's a walkthrough.
So, but the submissions to Japan has sort of
risen up in numbers
recently. That's because of the tariffs,
But in fact, PSA did mention that most of Asia's submission will be directed to Japan.
So even if you can, so was it that they said that they're not taking in submissions?
Yes, due to the tariffs.
Okay, right. So for me, I do direct submissions to states, right? So on the 3rd, when this whole thing happened, they have stopped accepting cards from overseas. This is their written document.
Okay. Even Canada, right?
Canada, they have their own. Right. So anything overseas, they are not accepting. So any internal, so in states itself, they will continue lah. Right. So that's the stand since 3rd of April. Right. So ever since then, and then PSA also said in their website saying that overseas submitters can submit through Japan, PSA Japan, right? So hence the uprise of submitters sending through Japan has went up, and also because of that, there is a lot of delays. Right, it used to be a very fast route
to Japan.
Like in terms of the layover and the turnaround time is.
I think I've ever seen results come back 2 weeks after submit. There was
one period of time. Yes,
it was Japan.
Early January.
But it's very rare now already due to the volume.
It's just purely on volume, right? So for the US side, we just got to wait, right? You just had to wait with the whole tariff. I mean, let's hope. Everything cross fingers, the whole Trump and the whole political situation, right, has taken a simmer down and everything, and then PSA try to open up to overseas, because if you think about it, right, they are kind of losing customers.
They are.
They are losing overseas customers, and from what I understand, BGS is still operational.
So BGS US is still taking.
But BGS is totally different, right?
It's Europe.
BGS US also have slightly different, I think. It's because of the declared value.
Correct.
Because when you send a PSA card to United States, the declared value subjects it to tariff. So if you were to under declare, you don't pay. But it depends on whether the immigration guy decides to.
But BGS doesn't.
BGS has no declared
value.
So it makes it very simple. But the turnover time
BGS it's its own turnover time, and I mean I have.
Another story
for another time for BGS.
So the reason why I bring that up is because a person may sort of be thinking, okay, if I had access to Japan and US, to send my cards. What's the difference? I think we've received cards recently due to the grading, but from your experience so far, you've seen the way Japan has been grading cards as compared to what we've seen previously in the US.
I think they have
some differences.
They have standard guideline, but it goes down to eventually the grader himself, how he views the card. There's a little bit of for PSA, I think grader is allowed some leeway of perspective on how they view the card, even despite a fixed set of criteria. So Japan, I only know Japanese as being very strict people compared to the USA. So my take is that perhaps if you were to send to Japan, it might be a little bit more strict compared to the United States. But my main belief on sending to Japan side is just the faster turnover. For us, Singapore side, it's very easy for us to bring cards over to Japan and submit, and then I spend a few days holiday waiting. A few days of holiday there, right? Waiting for the cards to be ready. I collect myself. I bring back.
So speed
is the
main
key, right? Because the market is at this price. Your cards better be back at this quickly as possible, right? But United States, the turnaround, you have to FedEx there, the FedEx back. You have to get past the GST one layer and then another GST another layer. By the time you get your card, your card might have already went down in pricing if you're planning to flip it.
But I mean, apart from that, do you think that the Japanese graders, just in your own personal opinion, not to say that there's anything with them, but so far with the results that have come back, do you think that any differences? Do you think that they grade different cards differently, or do you think that
I think they're pretty strict right now in terms of grade, as in they are at the standard it's supposed to be. Your cards reflect the grade.
Yeah.
There was I think a common understanding that there was certain series of cards has different grading criteria, but we shall not go into that. Otherwise, you'll affect everybody's knowledge on choice of cards, right?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's your own homework to do.
You can DM Javier.
Don't DM me. I'm not gonna tell
Santosh.
you those info.
He will tell. If you buy him coffee, he may tell you lah.
But what I can safely say is that PSA is Japan. The one word for me personally, I feel is strict.
Strict lah. Okay. So
precision lah. I mean,
precise.
That's what they are known for, like.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So I mean, hopefully, we get more options down the line. Once the tariffs are lifted or changed, then hopefully PSA US will open some of these things up.
I think CGC also has an Asia branch, and then BGS. Only BGS doesn't have an Asia branch.
BGS just opened up their Europe branch.
Europe branch only,
Yeah, so hopefully we see some of that changing. I guess some of the things that I think collectors are also sort of maybe thinking about or considering about is, like you were saying, like why should I mean, if I go back to the original thing, like why would somebody want to grade a card, right? There's of course that value, and I think we touched about like the idea of somebody who wants to flip a card, then to or maximize the value of a particular card. Like if this particular card is so nice and so clean, what does it sort of mean, right? I think that grading has sort of affected the what's left over in the market. Like whenever I see somebody want to sell a raw card, my back of my mind always I think is, this person has tried to pre-grade the card or saw that the card is not going to be a 10. So they're just selling out the card. So I always think that a raw card that's in the market now that people are trying to sell is
ungradable.
For a 10, which I think is like, if then I know that this is going to be ungradable, and then I won't bother. So I think that's quite interesting. Like now that with grading always up, there is that measure lah, maybe. Another reason why somebody may want to grade a card, even though it's not a high grade, is for authenticity.
Yeah, that's the main one.
Yeah,
I think at the start off when we didn't have when we used to have all these old collections, right, and we don't grade them, and only recent boom after COVID is that a lot of our cards we don't know whether is it authentic, not authentic. The knowledge is lost over time. Right? You need somebody who has actually experienced and see it to know that whether this card is real or not real. So then that's where the grading booming market comes in, right? But over time, everybody will so many circulating, and you will start to want to know more. Then as you know more, like what you say, at current period now, the shadow is there, right? How come this guy is never grade his card? Like you bring a base set Zat in, you try to sell me at 400. It's like, okay, it's fairly clean. How come this guy doesn't want to grade? I get suspicious too, right? Why would he not grade? So it's a kind of like, put it in a way, the community is getting more mature. We know our stuff, we do our homework, we know the scene. That's good for us because now it's stable to buy things, sell things. But
and
it does
people
give you
are getting more craftier also.
Craftier, yes.
That's the word lah. That's the word lah. It's crafty.
I think the craftiness is sort of fine. So like I have some Masaki Gengas that went to go get graded. So when they came back
NG.
N9
N3
or N9. Basically, they suspect that the card has been coloured.
Recolored or white.
Altered.
Okay.
Then I asked them, say, can you just slab it even though it's altered? So actually, I had one card was authentic, altered.
Okay.
Yeah, so the card's real, but they found that there's some alteration, which is basically what somebody did was they took a pen
and they dotted it
color. So and it's very obvious because the ink leaks to the side. So you can see one. Yeah, maybe I didn't tell. Then I have one that they also said suspected alter, but I couldn't find what was the issue. Then I sent again. It just came back authentic. It didn't come back altered. So it means that they felt that the card was authentic, but it wasn't altered. So it's quite interesting what they pick up or what they don't pick up. But I think the value of the grading is that you can still get it authenticated. I think that's a good thing.
So another reason why one would grade their card is to preserve the card.
Yeah.
Because like that's one of the, like if you're planning to keep old cards, right? Or a card that you, like what you say, memory, right? You pull this from, I still remember my first card and I graded it. I mean, to me the grade wasn't the issue, like it's just like, is the memory like encapsulating the card that creates the memory in your head.
Yeah.
Right. So like, because of that, it's just preservation. It's just card preservation. Like ultimately, it's like putting it in a plastic. It prevents from like damage.
Yeah.
Further damaging.
On whatever the card may be lah.
Yeah.
But you still shouldn't shake the card. Or
of course, yeah. So it's just preservation. Ultimately, it's authenticity and preservation.
Yep.
Like the value and everything, I feel that's secondary. Like it's a secondary thing in this whole grading situation, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it is a very big driver of our market. It's the reason why prices have gone up. It's the reason why packs are so expensive now.
Yeah.
Hopefully the bubble bursts, but that's down the line. But I think we've covered quite a lot in terms of grading, reasons why people grade, and so on and so forth. I think one thing I just wanted to sort of, maybe we can touch off before we close off, is actually about fakes, because there's fake cards that do get graded, but recently there have been also fake slabs that have been found as well, right? So it doesn't from what I've seen, I'll just share one example where there was a Japanese social media, they are a store essentially.
Okay.
So what they found was that somebody brought in an Espion.
The
Espion,
I know what you're talking about.
and it was the card was correct, the grade was correct, and everything looks correct. But it's just that if you put the original and the fake side by side, you could tell the store could tell that there were some differences. So what happened was that when they opened up the slab, they realized that somebody went to stick an Espion AA over a normal Gen card, right? And then they slapped. They I don't know how they found the exact cert number,
dimension, cert number, and
everything. So I think one thing to consider, especially for some of the high end cards, I know there are a lot of, if you go to Macari or Bai, there are a lot of fake ponchos. You look at the card, you can sort of tell.
Yeah.
There are a lot of fake ponchos. So one thing, one I guess warning is that always check the card, and maybe since you know, maybe can you share just like what are some other things that people need to sort of take into consideration when they are buying in a card, just to make sure that the card's not fake or not resealed or recracked or things like that. Okay,
so for raw cards, right? I mean the absence of a plastic that is covering over it, right? So raw cards is a bit more easier to see whether is it a fake card. I mean discoloration, whether blurriness, the font, the shine, the texture, especially for full arts, the texture and everything. So those are for raw cards, right? I mean there are very good fake cards out there also, very good fake cards. But for slabs, right, it's very evident that it has like the fake slabs are circulating, right? And then I ever got into a person that I know got like, I mean PSA, you can scan the QR code.
Yes, so they scan the QR code.
So they scan the QR code, everything is the same.
Yeah.
But it's a fake card.
So how did they tell, or who found out?
So it felt, because the like we as a raw card you will know how to see a fake card, right?
Yeah.
So this person bought a card not knowing there is still fake cards in the market and kind of thing. So the slab and everything, it looks authentic. So it looks exactly like a PSA slab, the cert and everything. But that's why for PSA there is like the the PSA that you can
the ink, the invisible ink, right?
And everything, right? So the person who bought it didn't know about all this.
The fugitive ink is not something that everybody knows. Yes.
So when the person bought it, like now I buy this from you, I just scan the QR code, then like, it's all the data there, because it's that data is easy, right? It's in the market. I mean, it's in internet, easy to see. But it's that this whole thing can be faked. So that's where you got to know what you are getting into.
So the things to sort of typically look out for if you're buying a PSA slab is, whenever we vendors take in new slabs, we will use a UV light. So at the border, at the top of the slab, there's between the red and the white sections, there is a invisible PSA, a line of PSA text.
Yes.
PSA.
Top and bottom, I think.
Top and bottom.
So when you shine your UV light, it will shine here. It will also.
In fact, the back also have.
The back will also have.
Yeah.
So you always, that's one way to double check. It means that at least the label is real.
Oh yeah, correct. Yeah.
Of course, there are some people who are able to crack the slab.
So
another one is the watermark also.
The watermark, yes.
Yeah, so there's a watermark in the white section that you can tell. Most of the fakes also, you can see the font is actually a bit off.
Yes.
But there are some real ones that is just maybe an older series. So the font, they changed the font.
Oh yeah.
So you can always
telltale signs for those.
There's telltale signs, but you can always see that a modern font should have very similar font with the rest. So it's sometimes very easy. You have another PSA stamp in front of you. You know it's authentic, or you grade it yourself, and then you put side by side. You can tell by the font. You can tell by the what. At least you can confirm whether the label is real. The other thing again you can think about is also to look at whether if the label is real, then the second marker is whether you open up the slab, see it on its own without the plastic, and then what you can see is whether there's any signs of cracking. Small cracking, I guess, okay.
I think essentially you can check for glue. So there's the PSA seals, right? The glue should be clear. What if it has been tampered with to open and reseal? The glue will oxidize and you'll change into a
grayish translucent.
Like a bit like when you use super glue, or you use super glue on your things. Very similar, right?
Yeah.
So make sure
there's something to watch. But I think that skill, that kind of knowledge is very rare. And you hardly see them here in Singapore with that issue. But there is still
just in case. You never know where somebody may have bought from overseas, not knowing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just in the market.
Correct.
To me, actually, first hand, I haven't really seen a fake one in my hand. Nobody's, because we always check. So, but I haven't received a fake slab before. Have you all personally seen?
I have encountered one. It's a vintage hollow tower Gyarados. Essentially, the whole side was defrosted already.
Okay, so
basically somebody opened the slab and changed it. As in, that's what I felt. Didn't dare to take the slab. That's 100% for sure.
So yeah, I mean, if you see any of these markers, best is not to do the deal.
Just
step away.
Step
don't
away
take the
from
risk.
Don't take the risk.
Even if it's so cheap, and if it's so cheap, it's already a red flag already. Yeah. So
especially on an expensive card, and you are getting in a very good deal. There's something wrong with it.
I think,
sorry, you want to say what?
I just want to add a little bit more, right? The cards, right? Although nowadays, like you say, some really tamper with the slabs and then the stickers over, right? The other set of thing I think getting more popular in Singapore are autograph cards. Signature cards, right, have also been circulating around a lot of fake ones. People who are able to mimic, so then this is very, very tricky to identify. I think not many people in the world can even distinguish this. It has a risk, and then I don't think any of the big companies can even discriminate, tell them apart unless they witness the signing itself.
Something else. I think
that's one other topic another time. But there's something to add on to the
signature one is
another ballpark. But I think we covered quite a lot of things. We covered the value, the different companies, some of the legalities, or some of the taxation things that are impacting the collection right now. Why we have slabs as well. I mean, I guess when we talk about, hopefully if PSA US opens, then it will give people more options down the line, right?
Yeah, let me know if you're sending.
So if you want to send your cards, you can. Santosh is here. You can always find him to send cards. We're in Queensway Bartertrade, so you can always come down here as well. Moving forward, do we have any exciting things happening over the next few weeks for Bartertrade? Anything you want to announce?
Next few weeks, not really right? So every Friday we have like a TikTok live
stream.
So check them out. Yeah, that's about it. But we are planning to do a Marvel Day.
Okay, so they had a Star Wars Day recently, right?
Yeah, recently we had Star Wars Day. So we are planning to do a Marvel Day just the week before Fantastic Four.
Okay.
So any all those will like shout out in our social medias just to let people know. So basically, it will be more of a Marvel centric kind of.
If they rock up in their Spider-Man costume, do they get any special discounts?
Yeah. Sure.
So come find Santosh.
Yep.
Wear your Spider-Man suit
or something.
If you're a girl in Venom suit, Santosh will give you even more discounts. Yeah, you can have a chat with him. But how about us? We've launched this podcast, Gold Nugget Gang. Do we have any other upcoming things that we're doing? Exciting things that
we definitely have projects coming up. We shall not announce until we have further concrete.
We wait for more information to come in.
I think trade shows that will be appearing soon, right? There's some trade shows.
SG Card Show at the end
of June.
I think that's the biggest one lah. So by the time you watch this, we should be about a month away from SG Card Show.
Two episodes down.
So I mean, there's we've covered a lot about grading, but do follow us on socials. Do let us know whether you have any other questions that you have. Any other closing tips on grading for any of our viewers?
I think it's good to go and check out all the websites for each of the grading company, see what are the criteria. These are things that I think you yourself as a collector or newcomer coming in should due diligence and have a know how cards are assessed. Then I think at the end of the day, we talk a lot about data. Population count is the biggest factor. Go and have a look at population count, see what general market is buying, and then these are the things that if you're planning to invest, maybe it's something you need to know very thoroughly. The difference between an English card, a Japanese card, and a vintage in terms of pop count.
And I mean, talk about pop card. I mean, something came to my head because last time, if y'all didn't know, last time I used to do YouTube channel for a while.
Right, we're back.
Yeah, we are back now.
Bring you back.
Yeah, so back in the day when my Afiq and I we did a YouTube channel for Rebirth, right? We revealed like PSA, grades. So there was one period of time I submitted a bunch of Mewtubes.
Okay, yes.
The Shining,
the Arita
Shining Legends.
Mewtwo in a tube.
Mewtubes. Yeah. So I think we submitted 12. I don't know.
Okay.
Then only like I think 5 or at least half of it came back as a 10s.
Okay.
So not bad. But then it was also it all looked good lah. Right. So ever since then, if you realize like we last time used to use this word pop control. So when you say population, the first thing came to mind is pop control.
So one trick to that is that if you're submitting the same card, spread it out. Maybe.
Because we did it for like content.
Yes.
So it's totally different. So but the thing is, when he was talking about population and everything, the first thing came to my head is pop control.
Yeah, and definitely that affects because the grading company also doesn't want to just release too many of the same card into the market at a different grade. So maybe they were a bit more lenient. Then they realized, hey, how come it's all the same card? Then they said maybe I have to be more stringent for the rest. But that's our guess. May not be the case, but that's
that may not be true. It's all down to our own personal feel, right? PSA, you'll never know the criteria.
You'll never because it's not as transparent as the others.
If you send the CGC, you send the BGS, you send the tag. I guarantee you send 10 copies, you're gonna have. If it's so good, it's all going to be 10. If it fulfills their criteria. But PSA has a bit of human touch.
We will discuss.
It's all about human touch.
So, but I guess that sort of rounds up the episode. Hopefully, it was informative. We've covered like quite a lot of things. I think we've also talked about in terms of which grading companies you should consider. If you've got anything else that you like to us to sort of share about in terms of grading, do let us know. And if not, then that's all for today. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. See you.